2018 turned out to be a very weird year for Pokémon. It seemed like every other month there was some kind of interview, magazine, or some other info dump that shed light on things no fan thought existed before then. Stuff that was never publicly spoken about for literal decades. Many of these came with the discovery of a lot of Pokémon that never saw the light of day, and this does not happen, like, at all. Some of the Pokémon here are early revisions of ones we all know, others are things we wish we came to know. And today I'm taking a look at the ones that caught my eye. So now, without further ado, I give you my top 10 favorite beta/unreleased Pokémon. Enjoy, everybody! From the days I first started browsing Pokémon websites, there were rumors that the starters from Gen 2 weren't always what we knew them to be. Said to have been used in a demo of Gold and Silver from Spaceworld 1997, these Pokémon were called Happa, Honoguma, and Kurusu, and the only images we had to go on were a few fan creations shown on Bulbapedia. I began to doubt these things' existence as time went on until the Spaceworld demo was finally unearthed, and seeing them in the flesh had me speechless, especially with Honoguma. People have made so much fan art of that thing over the years. Even more surprising is that they had complete evolution sets as well, and for Beta Chikorita, a radical middle form that looks nothing like what came before or after. I'm wondering why these things were made if they were just going to be shelved later on, but even if they were placeholders, they've still got quite a bit of charm. Simple as it is, I do like what they were trying to do with Aquaria here, and Dynabear looks pretty cool too, but I am glad with what we got in the end. And I mean, can you imagine Ash having one of these things in the anime instead of Bayleaf? I don't know how I'd feel about that. Like the Johto starters, we've known Girafarig started out as having two similar heads on both sides for a long time. In the last few years, we even saw a screenshot of what it looked like in-game, but the Spaceworld demo shed even more light on the whole gimmick. It was originally normal Dark type instead of normal Psychic, which I feel fits the palindrome concept a little better, coupled with the design. I still like the Chain Chomp looking tail that final Girafarig has, but I feel like the original look would have made Girafarig a much more memorable Pokemon. And apparently it also evolved from a beta Pokemon called Twins, another normal Dark type tied at the hip. I'm thinking Girafarig got the short end of the stick when it came to fine-tuning ideas, cause this is all really cool. Who would say no to all that? It may seem a bit weird that a pair of ghosts would evolve into a giraffe, but we've seen a fish evolve into an octopus in the same generation, so that doesn't even faze me anymore. Long story short, this would have been cool. Hidden in the Spaceworld demo, Bamushika is a quirky little guy and would have been quite the turnaround if it was introduced in Gen 2. You know how everybody goes on about how uncreative Seal is just because its name is Seal, and even if they weren't, just how basic it kind of is? I'm sure Game Freak was thinking, okay, here's a seal that's a fire-water type and balances hot coals on its nose like a beach ball. You still think we're lazy? I never had any issue with Seal, so they didn't have to prove anything to me, but I like what they were thinking with this one. For as long as I can remember, I'd have discussions with friends saying, dude, can you imagine if they made a fire-water type Pokemon? What on earth would that be like? I never would have guessed they had the idea in their heads longer than I did, and that their first shot at it was with a fiery seal, or sea lion, whatever. And while Volcanion is a very solid design, I think this one's just a little more on the nose. I swear the jokes write themselves sometimes. I mean, what do you want me to do? People are kind of divided on baby Pokemon. Some find them to be adorable additions to the roster, and others think they're a waste of space. I like a fair share of them, if only because they make their second stage an evolved Pokemon. A weird validation, I know. But it turns out there were plans for even more babies in the Spaceworld demo. I can see why they weren't put in the final game, because some of these guys, while cute, are very much unnecessary. I don't think anyone was really demanding there be a baby form for Goldeen, and Growlithe is already a puppy Pokemon, so yeah, that's a bit much. Baby Vulpix is kinda cool because the Pokédex always goes on about how Vulpix only has one tail when it's born, so this is what they meant. My favorite is the baby Meowth, which goes by the name Konya, and it makes me wonder what things would be like if Meowth was an evolved Pokemon. That would have been cool for the anime where Pikachu and Meowth are always squaring off with each other, you know, just another parallel for the eternal rivals. Another beta baby I like is the Grimer pre-evolution. It's literally called Beto Baby, and I like to think that's a big old nose on his face, or just a wide open mouth. Either way, it's adorable. To get Slowpoke to evolve into Slowbro, you need a Shelder on its tail, but if Shelder ever came off, it would have lived on as a Pokemon called Turban, referencing its shape as well as the name of the creature it's based on, the horned turban snail. Since I was a kid, I've thought about this being its own thing, because we all know it's a Shelder and it's very much alive. We've heard several times that if Shelder falls off Slowbro's tail, it devolves into a Slowpoke, but what about the shell itself? I figured that if it needed Slowpoke to move around and get food, it'd die if left on its own, but it seems there were plans in place for this idea that sadly never came to be. Yes, we got Slowking in Gen 2 and Mega Slowbro in Gen 6, but this would have been pretty sweet too. And how would you even get this Pokemon? I thought maybe by having your Shelder hold a Slowpoke tail, but then I remembered you can't buy them because the whole Slowpoke tail thing was pretty taboo in Gen 2, so never mind. We're all aware of the Spaceworld leak, so to spice things up, I wanted to see if I could find any scrapped Pokemon from Gen 1. At the time I was scripting this video, this very segment even, the fine folks at Helix Chamber unearthed another treasure trove from Red and Green. It's not as big as what came before and we only have back sprites to go off of, but there's still a lot of discoveries that were made. You know those missing no files in the original games and how there were 190 Pokemon planned for Gen 1? I used to think that there were 40 designs that were stashed away for Gold and Silver, but it turns out it was these Pokemon all along. Seems like according to this back sprite, the Marowak line had a third family member, and you can clearly see it holding a child in its arms. I still don't think it had a direct relationship to Kangaskhan though. It's still in this sprite dump with a baby in its pouch, and it looks nothing like Cubone, who is also here. What's even cooler is that some of the Spaceworld Pokemon even showed up in here, like Baby Vulpix, Baby Goldeen, and even the round Thundercats Kotora and Raitora, who had a third member in their line at this time too. Seems like they really couldn't decide on whether to cut them or not, but now I'm kinda bummed they did. I don't know how they did it, but I'm hoping they find the front sprites to some of these guys because it is eating away at me at what some of these Pokemon might look like. The powerhouse bugs of Gen 1 and 2 have a confusing relationship. Scyther and Pinsir were Gen 1 counterparts, so why does Scyther get an evolution and Pinsir get nothing? Oh, but he does get another counterpart in Heracross, and all 4 bugs have the same base stat total. Like, who's related to who again? In the Gen 2 beta, things were a little simpler, with Scyther and Pinsir both having evolutions named Scissors and Plucks respectively. I've always liked Scizor, but there are some days where I like Scyther's design more. It's an amazing dinosaur-mantis hybrid, and if it never evolved, people would still go on about how cool it was. I'm sure it wasn't easy to make Scyther even cooler, and its original evolution is like a mishmash of it and Final Scizor. I still prefer Scizor's sleeker design, and the red color scheme fits it a lot better, but if we ended up getting this instead, I would've liked it too. Plucks kinda creeped me out when I first saw it though. It looks like an unholy fusion between Pinsir and Heracross. I'm guessing this is where Heracross came from, splitting off to become its own stag beetle, and I wouldn't give up Heracross for anything, so good on them. I'm at least glad to know that the Scyther-Pinsir rivalry was dropped for a legit reason, but even if I think Plucks wouldn't have made a good evolution, it's still a great design. And they all got Megas years later, so I guess things check out for now. If there was one Pokemon I thought had an easy creation process, it was the Pikachu line, but that couldn't be farther from the truth. Pikachu itself started life as a Japanese dessert before becoming an electric rodent, but Game Freak revealed it also had an evolution past Raichu called Gorochu. We've yet to see official art for this Pokemon, and as of May 2019, all we've got is a brief description and a single back sprite, but to think Pikachu had a final evolution with horns and fangs is something else. There's some great fan interpretations out there, with these two being my personal headcanon, but you know, if we did get Gorochu, that would have changed the fabric of Pokemon quite a bit. Pichu probably wouldn't exist, which would mean Smash Brothers would have one less punching bag, and what of Raichu? We never would have gotten an Alolan form if it wasn't the final stage, and heck, maybe regular Raichu wouldn't have become as overlooked as it is in the first place. Game Freak said they only got rid of Gorochu for balancing reasons, but remember, this was the first generation where critical hits were based on speed and psychic types rule the roost, so I hear that and just go, yeah, sure, whatever you say. Two of the coolest designs I came across have to be Urufuman and Warufu, or Wolfman and Warwolf. Their true identities are shrouded in mystery, with Wolfman being a pair of freaky looking eyes and stubby little feet, and Warwolf a pair of eyes and claws. They remind me of stuff like Tangela, Cubone, or Mimikyu. I'm a sucker for Pokemon who have their real faces hidden away, and I like how science has made so many breakthroughs in the Pokemon world, but nobody has ever gotten the idea to take a dead specimen and just remove the thing that's hiding its true identity. Why have we not done that yet. They seem to be cloaked in the pelt of another Pokemon, though it's some kind of wolf-looking thing that doesn't appear in the Pokédex. That little detail reminds me of how the Vullaby line uses bones from other Pokemon, but they don't look like they're from anything we know. And it seems like whatever this thing is, it also evolves. So does this species just target this Pokemon in particular? Are these little guys just strong enough to kill wolf creatures and take their pelts? I wonder if they scrapped this idea because it raised just one too many questions, but there's no doubt it would have been a fan favorite. And it's an ice type. I totally would have used them in Gold and Silver, and Lance probably would have been a lot easier to handle. Now, I've gone on record saying that I'm a fan of Farfetch'd. It's not great in battle, but for some reason, I like it. I even made a video of Pokemon that deserved Mega Evolutions, with Farfetch'd showing up front and center. So with that knowledge, you can probably guess how I reacted when I saw that it was planned to have an evolution this entire time. I was skimming through all the Spaceworld sprites and stumbled across Madam and just went, "You're kidding me. You're kidding me! Oh man! I want to know who at Game Freak took a look at this and said this was not good enough to be put in the game. Who's the one who said, nah, Farfetch'd doesn't need to evolve, stupid, that's a waste of time. I'm betting they don't work there anymore. This is just too perfect not to do something with. It's an elegant ninja swan that has mastered the art of league combat. This is so much better than what we eventually got with Ducklet. I don't give a crap that Farfetch'd got a boost to its attack and first impression through breeding in Gen 7. If we got Madam in Gen 2, we wouldn't need that. We wouldn't even be having this conversation right now. Why did you do my man Farfetch'd like this? Hey there guys, thanks for watching. I really hope you enjoyed what you saw. If you did, feel free to give this video a like, share with a friend, subscribe, check out my social media pages, my Patreon page, you know, all that good stuff that I'm always rambling on about. Also would like to give special thanks to all the fan art that I showed in this video, and the respective artists are all linked in the description. Extra special thanks to Rachel Briggs for making art of every beta Johto Pokemon, so be sure to give her stuff a look too. And be sure to tell me some of your favorite beta / unreleased Pokemon. There's quite a lot of them now. And with all that said, I'll see you next time for another installment in this month of Pokemon. Catch you later!